What's going on, my beautiful people from YouTube? I'm excited to share this interview with Greg Osuri with you guys. We talk about what builders need to do in Web3 space. We talk about mining, what happened with the Akash network miner that was supposed to be super profitable. Where is that today? Where are things headed? But also, where did Greg come from? How did this all start? And I'm thrilled to say that this is an uncut interview. I want to make sure you guys get the full scoop. Greg doesn't hold back. You guys know that he's very vocal about what he thinks, and I'm excited to say that this interview is no different. You guys are gonna get to hear exactly where he's at and why the Akash network will definitely, not financial advice, provide some incredible value in the very near future, more than it already does today. So a lot of insights, a lot of things happening in Web3 for builders. And like I tell you guys, builders are the reason why we are here today and not getting rug pulled. The people who build things of value, people that build things that are going to be utilized for generations to come are the key element for a very successful bull run. But again, not financial advice. All I ask is smash the like button, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Is he on the right track? Do you guys believe in what we're talking about when it comes to both stocks as well as the crypto markets? Or is it, not quite hitting the mark for you? Either way, leave a comment down below, like I said, and I appreciate you guys listening in. Try to do a little bit of homework. You're a programmer for 25 years or so? And then the last 13, 14 years or so, you've been working on tools to help people build. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So, and you got that big Firebase under your belt, which Google acquired. And that's like all nice and everything, but are you still a programmer even though you're on the marketing circuit?
No, so I'm not a Firebase. Firebase was launched at Angel Hack. I don't have it's not my company, right? So just be clear. Angel Hack was the hackathon based accelerator, and it was the largest of its kind. And Firebase was one of the first ones that launched there. And I write code every day, even today, right? I still write code. And after Angel Hack, actually after all the Firebase stuff, I wrote a bunch of libraries that became extremely popular, especially with Kubernetes and Docker world in the container infrastructure world.
Yeah.
They were trending top 10 on GitHub. You know how you have GitHub trending repos, right? So if you go there, my libraries were top 10 3 or 4 times. So it's not one time, right? So every time I write library, it gets really popular in Golang. So, and I don't write that hits anymore. I don't know. Most of the software I write is just to serve Akash, and I don't write the core software, right? Either the easy ones or the really hard ones. So, so I don't write the actual production stuff, right? In the sense, I did the whole website, Akash.network right now. I did the whole website in 20 days myself during Christmas, because Christmas we had people were off and there's less activity. So I just took on because I wanted to make our website open, and our old website was not that great to open source. And so I migrated all the content to a new fully open source website, and I made it faster than Google. So I did the easy part, which is the website, and I did the really hard part, which is making it faster than
Google. Optimizing it, right?
The load times are faster than Vercel, Google. It's better in accessibility than Wikipedia, much faster than Craigslist. So I take pride in doing really, really hard things with simple things. Yeah. So yes, I'm a programmer. I program. I don't get paid for programming anymore. I do it as a support function in my company, and I don't get paid as programmers in Overclock Labs make way more money than I do.
All right, so let's talk titles then. Your title is founder and CEO. What does that mean?
I'm the CEO for Overclock Labs, which is the company that created Akash Network, and founded Akash Network as well. But Akash has a lot of other founders like Adam Boz and whatnot. So Akash is not an organization. It's a independent network. It's a community, right? It's not a formal company. So my title is founder, and of Overclock Labs and CEO.
What does being a CEO mean then?
I run the company. I'm responsible for its survival, and my job as CEO is to make sure people have money and people can do what they love to do and get out of the way. So I don't, so I support as much as I can in terms of like, hey, no engineer wants to do a website because all our engineers are like like they're not web people, they're like
Yeah.
infrastructure people. Nobody likes to touch CSS. So when people don't want to do that, I pick up and do it. Right? I do things that nobody wants to do, kind of thing. So my job is a support function at Overclock.
So this is crazy, but every successful CEO that I've ever talked to always looks at it the same way. It's not like I'm in charge of this thing. No, it's like it's my job to make this work. It's my job to make it all work, regardless if it's doing, a task that nobody else wants to do or supporting somebody else. Like that's a huge deal in my book is to become successful. It's not hard to become successful at scale. That's where you have to kind of like, humble yourself almost a bit to do the things that other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah. So I think like the biggest reasons why companies fail, I mean, besides raising capital, I mean, assuming you have capital, is a lot of times I think there's micromanagement happens to a point where it just becomes unsustainable for people to work, right? So, right, the thing Overclock offers is incredible work environment in the sense like we don't offer a lot of holidays, we don't offer a lot of like perks and whatnot, but what we do offer is incredible peers, incredible people you can come and work with. Right. So if you're someone that loves to grow, loves to work with other amazing people, you come and the best thing is the boss is more out of the way, right? It has to, right? So you can actually do your job. But also like make sure the vision is intact, right? So as long as you're doing the right job, as long as you're driving to a vision. So my job is to correct you in case you're like falling apart or like going sideways or coach you, right? Like I'd rather be a coach instead of like a manager, right? So
I feel like you probably get a lot more done as a coach than a manager because if you're just
100%.
telling people what to do, like that's all you're going to do is tell people what to do.
And yeah, exactly. And like one thing we noticed recently with our move to like radically open source in the sense Overclock Labs is still a company, still a private company, but whatever we do at Akash Network is radically open. So in the sense that traditionally we created Overclock Labs, created Akash and like open source code, but we haven't been very transparent in the process that creates open source software, right? It was still managed like a traditional company where the product managers would go get the requirements and form the spec and like that becomes like a thing that developers take iterations and then we finally be, oh, this is ready to open source and be open source. But now the process of building the code itself is open source.
So does that
Which
mean
is
you're like posting to GitHub every day as soon as somebody's updating something, or what does that
every day.
look like?
Yeah. So every day when there's a meeting that happens, there is a progress element that was progress done for a certain piece of software or a certain piece of area of the software. Somebody has a suggestion to improve. Everything is on GitHub right now. You can actually go to akash.network, github.com/akash.network and like see the community page. All the meetings like we had is public, right?
Wow.
All the summarization action items, it is public. So now, and we do this through a structure called special interest groups and user groups or working groups and whatnot. Um, and now all our employees for Overclock Labs, everything they do is public. So they're actually taking, it's a very interesting shift in how people look at it from being just contributors to becoming leaders because they have to drive the meetings a lot of times, right? Every meeting you have at least one or two Overclock employees in there. And, ultimately, whatever they say, it becomes accountable. So I don't like, as like CEO, I don't have to, like emphasize how important or not important certain thing is because they themselves are driving these meetings.
It's like
So now
everybody's watching.
everybody's watching and now everybody's a leader, right? So I think that created a fundamental shift on how we operate as a company. I'm seeing a lot more accountability and a lot more nights and weekend working because people are like, shit, I gotta go submit the SIG and I'm leading the SIG and I don't want to be embarrassed. You know what I mean? Like, so you're like, imagine yourself as a community leader who's accountable, right? So it just changes the perspective from employee to a leader. I think open companies are incredible if you do it right. So we're still experimenting, learning, but that's a big takeaway for me, to make our individual contributors as leaders and community leaders, driving the community, and having them, like, you know, work with other people to enhance that contribution, instead of just doing individual contributions. So that's it.
That totally makes sense from the outside looking in. It's like I can have, a internship with Akash without ever talking to any of you, just by sitting there and watching everything that's happening. But how does that benefit Akash Network?
Incredibly well. Now Akash Network solved hiring without hiring, right? I mean, like, the biggest bottleneck for companies, Overclock is a company. Biggest bottleneck is hiring.
Yeah.
Like we would pay 350K to 400K salaries, and we would get competed. We'd get outbid by larger companies, Google's and
Yeah.
Metas of the world. So hiring was extremely difficult, and now we don't hire anybody. Overclock Labs has its own core team. We're not hiring. Maybe we're hiring engineer too, but really most of the hiring is happening outside and onto Akash. And now we have everybody contributing. It's amazing, right? So how do we Akash accrues incredible value. How does Overclock Labs as a company make money? Well, we don't make money now. We're self-funded, but the idea is, we hold a ton of tokens, right? So we ourselves have value accrual, because the token will accrue value if there's a lot of contribution from the community, and community ultimately, wins, right? So Akash Overclock Labs is a member of the community. So it's like we're doing this because, sure, the community benefits. As part of that, we all benefit, right? So we don't have to think about direct value accrual. It's always indirect value accrual, right? So first, in order for value to accrue, you got to create value, and if the value is coming from a lot of people coming together with a shared idea and organized with a shared value system, the value accrues that way. So that can be always captured.
And I think that's the best way for people to look at companies. It's like they're not looking to cash in on their money. They're looking to grow something, to build value there instead. It's not just a money grab game. It's let's build something. And when we win, we all win together.
Correct. It's a very fundamentally different way how the Web 2 was built, right? If you think about it, like all the user-generated content platforms like YouTube, TikTok, whatnot, their value only comes from their users, right? There are no users, there's no value. These are network businesses, right?
100%.
Traditionally, the companies, could get away with just keeping all the value, right? And then they started like giving out the value a little bit to content creators using a revenue share program, right? But their users, the content consumers, consume a lot of content, but they're giving their attention back and like getting monetized on the attention using ads and whatnot. Users don't get nothing back, right? So they don't feel like, even though you use YouTube, you don't feel like you're part of YouTube community, right?
Right.
So with Web3, it's a completely different game, right? Like, so our users feel like they're part of Akash because they own a piece of Akash, and their contributions are actually enhancing the value of Akash, and they see it, right? And that is a fundamentally different way of scaling. And we open sourced our we made the announcement 10 days ago, and so far we have like 12 different contributors now, new contributors. There are more people coming from outside the company than inside the company in terms of Overclock Labs, in terms of contributions.
Which is where you're saying that you're hiring without having to hire.
Exactly. So we're getting all kinds of amazing people from Facebook's and Google's of the world are actually contributing. We're getting that level of talent without paying a single penny. So
That's pretty cool. Now, I got to be honest. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because I have a great time. Anytime I hear you talk about other people claiming to be decentralized, like you're decentralized and you're running on AWS. All right, okay, come talk to me when you fix that. And it's not like you're rude. You're just honest. You're just like, I'm just telling you exactly what I think and what everybody else is not willing to say. So this whole concept of centralization versus decentralization, and where do you think the line should be drawn? Because do you think that centralization should just go away completely, or is a decentralized Web3 the only way to go, and everything should be fully decentralized?
So the way you think about these things is companies versus markets. Just like look at the two sort of like aspects of economy, right? Companies and markets, right? Companies create value, accrue value. Markets is where value is exchanged. Any marketplace should be decentralized. Any value exchange, I believe, should be decentralized because marketplaces optimize for perfect competition. Like the win case for a marketplace is perfect competition, even though that's not the reality, but
Sure.
economists likes to call this a perfect competition because what that means is uh, you as a consumer will win if the prices are you get the best price. And the way you
Yeah.
get the best price is when no company offering the product in the marketplace has any advantage over other companies. Like commodities are priced really well because well, there's an auction system. There's less like variety in different commodities. It's pretty much the same, and you just auction off and you get the best price. Products, on the other hand, are not commodities, so it's very different. Like an Apple iPhone is so much more expensive than an Android, even though Android has a lot more features than Apple, right? So, so yes, markets are the best place, and marketplaces should be decentralized. Whereas products and companies, I don't believe should be all decentralized because without those companies, you don't have the markets.
All right. So here's a tough one. I've done marketing all my life since I was in my teens. It is nearly impossible for a marketplace to advertise itself. Like you will never see like Amazon Marketplace as an ad. You're going to see products that are being sold on Amazon. It's the biggest struggle that these marketplaces face. It's, eBay, for example, same idea. They're not saying, eBay is the place for you to buy things. No, eBay is where you can get this product because we've tracked you, we've dropped some cookies. Now we know that this is the kind of product you're looking for, and we have it, on eBay. How does that work for Akash now? Because Akash is technically a marketplace. Am I right?
I don't think it's true. I've seen ads for eBay on my even Amazon on my feed. It's just on my like Twitter, like Facebook feed and whatnot, right? I actually they advertise the products that they're selling because marketplace values the products they're selling. They don't individually
Exactly.
advertise Akash as a market or like Amazon as a marketplace, right? But because they know the content sells. The same thing with Twitter. The Twitter ads is not about Twitter is a great platform for sharing 140 characters or 280 characters, right?
Right.
Oh my
Exactly.
God,
So
the
it's
value of Twitter
sharing
comes from
what's
the
on
value.
Twitter.
Yeah, the
So
tweet, right? The tweet sells for
so
itself,
how
right?
are you selling the Akash network? If it is
Similarly,
a marketplace.
similarly, the value of Akash network comes from the network effects, right? So the value is like, okay, look, this provider is offering 80% cheaper than Amazon. Use this provider. Oh, well, in order to use that provider, you got to use Akash network. So the Akash sells itself. Akash individual, I can't be like, if I go to people and be like, Akash is a global spot market, cool, right? Like, sure, there's some value, right? But that's not what really drives. But if I say Akash can offer you your machine learning company, if you're looking for A100s, come to you and be like, hey, Akash can offer you A100s 10% cheaper by this provider. Makes sense,
So
right?
it's the products that are on there that makes the most
Absolutely.
sense.
I mean,
Um,
marketplace without products is
and I guess that's
marketplace.
here's a follow up to help people understand what the heck you guys do in the first place. If you go on the Akash website, you'll see that you guys, are a super cloud provider or whatever that means. What does that mean for the average user? What does that entail?
So average user being an average developer. So Akash is the simplest way to describe it. Akash is really a spot market for compute. A spot market in the sense, it's you have essentially a lot of people that run high quality cloud grade computation on the data centers, and they can sell that compute for a price that's set by the user. So that's really, really how what actually Akash is, right? If you had to break it down in an analogy way, it is essentially like Airbnb for data centers. So a lot of data centers have a lot of unused capacity. 85% of the time, those data centers are not used, like 85% of the time, right? So just like Airbnb, where you can get a lot of variety and a lot of different options and whatnot, compared to something like Hilton, where you have standard offering. You go to Amazon, Amazon is like Hilton, whereas Akash is like Airbnb. So you get a wide variety of quality, prices, and whatnot. You get high quality, super high, expensive hardware in Akash, as well as like low quality, super cheap throwaway hardware too that you can get on Amazon. So it's just a marketplace for compute.
And the biggest differentiator between you guys and Amazon, other than the decentralization, would it be the price?
Price, openness, open source, and variety, right? So you can get like NVMe storage on Amazon, for example, right?
Right.
Soon enough, you won't be, I mean, you can't get like A100s NVIDIA on Amazon anymore, but with Akash you can, right? So you just get like things that you can get on Amazon.
No, that is pretty cool. And here's something that like the people that view this channel all the time really care about is the mining aspect of it. And I remember about a year and a half ago that you guys came out with that little triangular shape,
Someone here, yeah.
which I couldn't get myself because I didn't make the cut. Um, where does that stand as far as individual personal mining for the Akash network for people that want to put their hardware to good use?
Yeah, so we punted that miner to a few more years. The reason for that is Akash was not ready to accept a low power device yet. So all power on Akash is like high end
Hmm.
compute, and the reason for that is the uh, there's still a lot of underutilized compute that's still around
Yeah.
that has to be consumed first before you can actually buy something for money and put it right. And number two, Super Mini got so successful that we have to like cancel the product for the time being because it's too successful. If it was not that successful, we probably would have shipped it, but there was a lot of reputational risk. We had 60,000 signups, prepaid, like people were giving like $100 or something like that.
Yeah.
Because they wanted this access. So we had to give money back and be like, look, this is too much. It's too much demand. And hardware is just too hard for a startup company to do, especially during COVID, because hardware needed like physical like collaboration, and chips were really really hard to get, right?
Yeah.
GPUs especially. So the supply shortage, there's collaboration required. There were a lot of things that just didn't feel like a hardware device is what we want to focus on at a startup company, but rather get our software right. So people love mining on Akash because Akash doesn't is censorship resistance, right? Like, so it doesn't really stop anyone from using it. It's unstoppable, as a matter of fact. So Headcenter banned, crypto mining, Microsoft banned mining, everybody, every cloud provider banned mining because it just doesn't really work out for them in terms of economics, right?
Yeah.
Cloud is all about, it's like cell phones, it's like ISP providers. There's a lot of oversubscription that happens in the cloud. So if you're a customer that's completely using the box 100%, you're actually losing, making them lose money. They bank on the fact that you're not using all your hardware all the time, right? What do you pay for? That's how
Yeah.
they make money. So they don't like mining because mining is optimized for max usage, right?
Yep.
But there are a lot of
Nonstop, twenty
people
four
that are there,
seven.
they don't give a shit about mining. They're this there because they're not like oversubscribing you or anything like that. There's a lot of hardware out there that's great for mining, right? So Akash lets you, I mean, Akash being censorship resistant, lets anybody plug in their unused compute. So it's great for mining workloads. So Akash slowly is becoming like this de facto place to go for doing proof of work mining. Chia network, a lot of Chia network runs on Akash, right? And reason for that is like, well, you can't really get a cloud option for Chia right now anywhere
Right.
other than Akash. And plus the hardware, right? You can't get NVMe storage. That you require high performance storage for Chia to function. So Akash is like slowly becoming like this de facto like cloud provider or cloud network for a lot of these like niche workloads that require heavy computational. They have heavy computational needs.
So the price of GPUs is still somewhat high, even after ETH went from proof of work to proof of stake.
Oh, it's going to get worse. And you know why?
Why is that?
Because there is like two main factors that's driving the price of GPUs, especially high-end ones, right? Like H100s are the next, like the gold standard of GPUs. A100s
Right.
are right now very, very, very high demand. It's like it takes about 6 weeks to get an A100 right now, NVIDIA, and they cost about 20 grand per chip. And we all know where the A100s are. Like Amazon Web Services has about 20,000 of them. Facebook
Yep.
has 10,000. Stability AI has about 4,000. We know the national labs have like X amount, so we know exactly where these chips are, and it's impossible to get them. Like it's impossible, right? So even on Amazon Web Services, you got to commit to like a dollar amount. I don't know the exact amount, but you got to commit to like a dollar amount in order to get access to these chips. They're not going to give it to you unless you're a high-paying customer. Makes
Right.
sense, because it's not like they're bad or something. It's just the way the economics is set up is like preventing optimizing for max profit, right? Makes sense.
Sure.
Um, and it's going to get even worse because complexity of AI, I believe, is doubling every 6 months.
Yep.
You see this GPT, Chat GPT, GPT 3.5, GPT 4. All that means is more complex AI coming in and using a lot of these chips. So number two, there is a reverse globalization trend that's happening. Like literally, there's a heavy protectionism in the United States. Uh, people blame Trump, but the era of protectionism actually began with Reagan. Reagan declaring for all the free market, values and whatnot. Reagan was the one first that imposed a protectionist regime for semiconductors, because a lot of the semiconductors was happening in Japan at that time,
Yep.
right? 80s. Now, U.S. is any U.S. person, citizen or permanent resident, or anybody I believe considered a U.S. person, cannot work in Chinese semiconductor industry anymore. It's a ban. Like overnight, Biden signs the executive order banning any Americans working in China or to a Chinese company on semiconductors, and Chinese are not allowed to buy American GPUs anymore. So what that means is, and there is and they're moving the TSMC, or the Taiwanese Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation,
Yep.
which produces about 67% of world semiconductors, move to the US because Taiwan is at heavy risk because of Chinese
Yep.
aggression. So that means the fabs that produce these chips are going to be 5 times more expensive. And even the CEO of TSMC, in their latest quarterly results, came out and said this is going to increase the chip cost by 5 times. So all our chips are going to increase in prices, especially GPUs. So I don't know why this is not a big story, and I want to go buy TSMC stock, because that's the stock, and NVIDIA stock as well, because the inflation is not going to slow down, and chips are so integral for it. Chips are everywhere, right?
100%. But shouldn't we be buying Samsung, because those guys are printing their chips as well? So they're going to be able to keep the lower price in comparison, or you think all the prices are just going to go up
No,
because it can?
TSMC makes chips for everybody. They're like they
They're gold. Oh, for sure, they're the golden standard. It's like Samsung is literally trying to compete and coming out with their own thing, and this is an opportunity for them to underprice. Well, they're backed up right now too. I've had chips, try to make chips with them, and they're backed up 6 months to a year, and that's with being cash friendly with some people too.
Yeah. I think the whole semiconductor industry is going to blow up, because of this reverse. Inflation is going to be. I don't know. I have a feeling inflation is not going to slow down. I think we accept a 5% standard inflation moving forward, because the protectionism regime in US is getting worse and worse. What I'm afraid of, uh, I don't know if you noticed that Chinese tech ban, they actually they try to destroy the tech industry, right? The software industry, because they wanted to optimize more for hardware, right? And it's actually working out really well for Chinese, for all the things that they did. The more hardware startups now in China, the real tech startups in China, than the social media of the world. And they're exporting social media outside China, like TikTok, right? They're actually
Right.
incentivizing social media. So there's a lot of emphasis on hardware and hardware manufacturing, and the demand for chips is just going to like quadruple along with the costs, right? Again, it's not a financial advice, but I'm like very like, so I subscribe to the notion that chip costs are going to only get expensive because of reverse globalization. And no one outside China is even set up for mass production. And
No,
TSMC
no.
is like so good, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
think Biden announced a $50 billion like incentive for TSMC to move to
To the
Texas.
US.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, talk about stocks. That's free money right there, boosting the company, right?
like TSMC would be my bet if I would free money to like they understand the value of this company, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
Well, it's
the
huge.
chip war is so big, you can't sell semiconductors to Russia, obviously, right? So they're running out of semiconductors to put them in the missiles and weapons. So they're using actually the consumer grade cameras now on their drones, like Nikon cameras or something. And it's just really sad,
Wow.
how these things are like crazy, how chips are the center of geopolitical, like
I mean, yeah, I mean,
conflict.
there's definitely a global impact, but taking that same concept where Russia might be using these consumer grade electronics to try to do something with it. Do you think that this decentralization with the Akash network could take advantage of the same ideas? Just like I don't want to necessarily bring up Flux, but Flux, they are amazing at hyping stuff up.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
just be honest. Their marketing is awesome. They do a really good job with that part of it. Um, because they're saying this Flux is for everyone. Everybody should be able to mine Flux, and your consumer grade stuff works on Flux, and it's working. I mean, obviously, it's working. We've seen how the price has increased tremendously. Is that something that the Akash network could take advantage of as well? And I mean, I got my 3090 here that just hanging out. I want to put it to work.
It's disingenuous, right? I mean, Flux. I mean, I'll be fully honest with you. When I try to use Flux, my experience was I actually did an honest like usage, right? I went to the website and I'm like, okay, let me deploy a WordPress website. Okay,
Right?
WordPress has something called MySQL on the back end,
Hmm.
and it has a PHP front end. The moment you put it on Flux, the password of my WordPress database was visible on the website.
Okay, that's never good.
Okay, so so I'm like, okay, if my password is on like website, who actually uses Flux to do anything production? Right? If you can't put a data, they're like, oh, you can't host private stuff on Flux. I'm like, so who's hosting what on Flux? Right? Yeah, you can mine the token. The token economics comes in a way that there is a like Bitcoin, right? Like 21 million tokens.
Right?
Only X amount initially minted. The rest of the tokens are going to be minted, ultimately going to the miners. So the model is like, well, you put a box up, any consumer grade box, you get all these tokens, right? And there's a time bomb, right? The tokens like run out after a certain time. The idea is you incentivizing or you subsidizing supply using this token mechanism to a point where you can get demand that will eventually replace the inflationary tokens, right?
Right?
The question is what happens if you don't get the demand, or if your product doesn't suit the needs of of enterprise grade, or like any demand that you need to get for a cloud, right?
Right?
So the product has a long way to go. I mean, hype is all great and all that. The product has a long way to go in terms of being appealing to
Right?
a serious workload, right? So that's where like a lot of the decisions, a lot of the sort of like features they say like, oh, the Flux automatically like load balances between different providers, so your application never goes down. Well, what kind of load balancing parameters we're talking about? How do I change? What if I don't want?
Mm.
What if I run a node? Like, what if I run a Cosmos node? Right? If I have two instances of Cosmos node running, if both of them sign together, I have a double sign. Right? How do I
You
prevent
you
that
don't
from
have that option in Flux. There's load balancing, but there is not a clear path of like this is how I want my load balancing to take place.
Correct. So there's no option for health checks. There's no option for load balancing. There's no option for how I want the schedule. They just assumed a lot of like things should work. And so yeah, it's good for running a website that has no private information whatsoever, a public like a static website, but you can't run anything beyond that.
But will it be as fast as a Kosh network?
No, it won't because it's a home like it's a home sort of like application, right? Like, so in a Raspberry Pi server is going to be a Raspberry Pi server sitting in a home somewhere. It's going to have that bandwidth. It's just not possible, right? So Akash was like, well, we have no incentives because we purposefully delay the incentives post product market fit, because pre product market fit will just incentivize the wrong thing. And that's worse because you run out of incentives and you have no more tokens to give, right?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes a Ponzi scheme at the end of the day, where you're just trying to bring more people to bring in more money, to bring more people to bring in more money.
You know who was really good at like marketing?
Who's that? I mean,
he got the biggest hedge fund, like $60 billion, you know, like one of the biggest hedge funds, very good marketing. People believed in it. People were just all about Madoff. Then, you know, it blew up. So I'm like, so don't take short-term like value and marketing and hype to long-term value creation and accrual.
Yeah.
Value accrual, the only way to build products is just grunt building every day, iteration, right? I want to see developers, when developers come back and be like, I want this feature, I want that feature, I want this feature. That's when you have product market fit. Like, go to any of our SIGs, right? Our SIG clients, for example, it's all public open. You can actually see devs coming in, like saying how painful or not painful Akash is. Like, the more pain points expressed, more care they have, right? That means they're using Akash for X amount of things, and some things are not that great, and I'm very, very, very open about it. And in fact, I'm so open that it's on our website where we are bad. You know, acknowledging where you are bad, working towards improving those bad, those shortcomings, so you can actually go build a product that people like, is the only way to do it, instead of saying that your product is going to solve the world's problems, right? Like,
I mean, it's not the only way to do it. It's the most honest way to do it, right? Because people are making a lot of money. People are growing these networks that don't have a lot of utilization all over the place through promises.
Yeah, but those promises have to deliver at some point. Like, they don't deliver.
No, they rug.
And call it a scam, right? Like, so, like, sure, the people are selling promises, and like, you know, if ultimately those promises don't deliver, like, what's going to happen? Like, you know, that's considered a scam. So you take a long-term outlook, right? Like, you take, like, okay, Akash is a very big vision. It's going to take a long time to realize the only way to do that is through this grunt, like, every day show up and like take feedback, iterate, ship, take feedback, iterate, ship. And hopefully you'll make less mistakes every day. So to a point, don't make any mistakes at the end, and that's when you win. It's like a reduction function, you know. I don't assume like any product, and I've built products all my life. And I've seen products that's hyper successful. I've seen products that are not successful. The big difference between hyper successful, like Firebase, for example, right? When Firebase launched, I was CEO James Tamplin at Angel Hack. The day before, they had a different company called Replit, I believe, or Revel or something like that. It was a YC company. Firebase was their side project that they were like, has a lot of value. And their first version has a web page with the password on it. There's no security, nothing. It's just like you can write and read. Anybody can write and read, by the way. It's like fully open, right? Anybody can write and read. 3 people on the team. They introduced the product to all the engineers and hackers at the hackathon at Angel Hack. They went to individual team, got feedback, iterated, relentless. Every week they would ship a fix or a feature, ask people like us to test it. We love it. We love because we are part of the process of product development. We felt we had some ownership. Like, I don't know, it was just such a communal build. James did a phenomenal job. And then voila, 6 months later, you have an incredible product, right? Like, it just takes that there's no other way to build. I see successful products, and even Apple, as a matter of fact, like, Apple didn't have like cut, copy, paste in the middle, right? They came up with the MVP and they just iterated relentlessly. We don't see Apple looks very polished, but really understand the process is they have quite a lot of iteration based approach, right? So when you put a lot of hype, what happens is you're stuck with that, maintaining the hype. If I come and tell you, my product is the best product in the world, it solves world hunger, yada yada yada, then you lose the humility of accepting its downfalls, right? Because now you're in a position to keep that hype up, and you really can't. You're stuck, right? So I'd rather take this does a great job in XYZ. It doesn't do a great job in ABC. If we can solve ABC, it'll do overall a great job. So I think having that honesty is very, very critical. And people like that honesty, and people like, especially professionals who build products.
Sure.
People like, everybody knows your product is not going to be 100%. In fact, your product is 100% when launch, you probably will fail because you waited too long to launch. You know what I mean? Like, so we take a very honest approach, and I think that's been contributing to our success in terms of growing our community and growing our user base. And Department of Defense, is using Akash. Now you're going to see a lot of like really some major announcements coming this year. I can't obviously tell what they are right now, but
it's okay. I won't share. I won't tell anybody else. It's just going to be on YouTube.
Yeah. Yes. Talking about YouTube, right? What I can tell you is, there is so much demand for GPUs. It's like even the biggest of the biggest companies can't get GPUs. It's just not there. Only way for these companies to get GPUs is to go after existing deployed GPUs.
Right.
There's a lot of GPUs that are deployed, all the way from Ethereum mining. They had $19 billion worth of GPUs that were bought with Ethereum. So we have the Ethereum miners, right? If you break them down, you have like these large data centers, like massive operations, to mom and pops using operating systems like Rave OS or Hive OS. A lot of these mining OSs, right? So a lot of people have this sort of like, very well distributed, and we know, at least we are working with the top, I would say, 2 of the 5 data centers that did and have a ton of GPUs from Ethereum, and we're working with a few operating systems as well. And Akash at launch will have at least 20,000 GPUs, right?
Wow.
We're targeting, and all varieties, A3000s, and we're also trying for A100s. They're very hard to come by, but
sure,
we have a mechanism to like actually incentivize that. But I'll share that later. So we have a ton of GPUs that just are waiting and sitting in every exec that I talk to, like in these companies that I'm talking about, thought about at some point a strategy to source these GPUs, and they couldn't. And every solution they had involved spending $50 to $100 million building a solution versus picking up something like open source like Akash.
So will there be room for the average user, the average, at-home miner to be part of something like this in the near future?
Absolutely. So now our entire focus is demand, not supply. Supply is enormous supply, and crypto is really good at getting supply, and we can turn incentives very soon. But demand is extremely hard because, the hard part is behavioral change, right? So you got to change the behavior of the user in terms of like a regular cloud user, and trying to use Akash is hard, right? Like because Akash is so decentralized, we don't have a UI. We have like 4 different UIs, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, CloudMoss, Praetor, Speron, now Fleek. Fleek is a very popular like Web3 deployment. Fleek announced Akash integration. So within like next 6 months, you're going to see Fleek doing the front end for Akash, which is amazing. They're really good at it. So, and we have 2 more really big ones that are going to announce Akash as the building the UI. So we've done a good job with like building the backend, and UI we believe should be where people capture value. So we consider the UIs as distribution channels, because now you build a UI like Fleek. Fleek has incentive to grow Akash, right? By growing Fleek. So yes, this community-based approach takes much longer to get demand, but because we're open source, because we have the strong value system that we share, we are creating these distribution channels that are going to exponentially grow Akash demand, right? And we're going obviously after demand side. And, you see me doing a lot of AI and a lot of AI hackathons and whatnot, because
a lot.
I went to a hackathon this weekend in San Francisco, Saturday, 10 a.m. There were 400 people in that. Engineers, like 0 business people, 400 programmers till I could see. My intention was to honestly go and learn some AI because I wanted to spend some weekend, but I was like, okay, this is a game changer now. So immediately went to the organizer and be like, hey, I want to sponsor this. And you know what the top prize was?
What's that?
$2,500 in API credits.
That was it?
Yeah.
All these people showed up for that?
Well, exactly. They showed up for other things, but the things they showed up was to hack.
Wow.
And like, so I go there. I'm like, I'm going to top the top prize. Obviously, I gave $2,000 in Akash credits. Like, and introduce myself like Akash XYZ, and you can deploy machine learning. People love it. But I was like, okay, I'm not going to hack here. I'm going to go and talk to every team member, introduce Akash. During that process, I realized, and the best part is this is AI. Not too many people know Akash. Being Web3. Of course, there are a bunch of Web3 people there. They knew what we are, but for the most part, like a traditional AI dev who's doing React or like Python doesn't care about crypto or doesn't know about Akash. So like me onboarding them onto Akash, the pain was like, oh, you got to go get these tokens on Kraken. Okay. Okay. And then you got to download like, oh, there are like 5 different ways to use Akash. You got to choose one. Like the experience was not there. And I'm like very honest about it. I mean, we're not there. We're not there to go serve an AI user yet.
But it's coming.
It's coming for sure because I'm there experiencing the pain firsthand myself. And that's fundamental to product because product is about empathy and about using your own shit to do everything, right? So of course I'm like, my number one priority is to solve that. And if you look at our SIGs, if you look at all our, and you can always follow the progress because we're fully transparent right now. The UI, and we're in fact working on not only like a generic UI, but AI specific UI. So AI workloads are very different from Web3 and and this general web.
Yep.
So my job right now, my mission in life, in the next 12 months, Akash will be the best platform to deliver AI workloads, like centralized, decentralized, not.
That's awesome.
So that's my mission, and because that AI is too important to be centralized. It's just such an incredible technology. It's moving. I mean, we see Web3. Web3 is great at creating value, terrible at delivering value. Terrible. This is bad. Like we amazing value. I mean, Web3 is just like, think about it, right? Like this is fundamentally paradigm shifting stuff. But when I asked AI dev to use like Akash, they're like, how do I get started?
Yep.
Like it's like so sometimes you just got to step outside and be like, what are we doing? And we have this incredible value, but we have no way to do it in a good way to deliver, right? So the only way to do that is to verticalize. If we can't verticalize, experience is going to be very, very hard. Verticalization, it can come from like the community, but Overclock Labs will be the AI engine to deliver Akash to AI workloads. So Overclock is still a closed company, right? So we can write products on top of Akash.
So I think it was Maroon 5 who said it's not always rainbows and butterflies, but it's compromise that moves us along. So you'd say you've compromised the user experience early on to build a product that works, so that you can now go, all right, let's make sure people can actually use the product that works.
Yeah, so there are 2 approaches, right? Like, so I think like with crypto, there was infrastructure first paradigm versus like user first paradigm, right? So so depends on who you ask. To be like, oh, user should come first, or they more often than not they never say infrastructure should. I mean, I agree. When user comes first, you get product market fit quicker,
right?
And you get validation quicker. But infrastructure comes first, you get capabilities and community better, right? So I don't think there is a silver bullet like this way or that way is the right way. It really depends. I strongly believe because crypto is so paradigm shifting, like fundamentally different technology, infrastructure had to come first, right? Because there's no way in hell you're going to build a fully decentralized non-custodial solution using user first approach, right? Like,
no, I agree.
Even for like Uniswap, I would consider to be the North Star of user experience for DeFi because they defined the DeFi pattern, right? Before Uniswap, nobody knew how to do DeFi, right? But that came because Ethereum existed. Ethereum didn't. Right. Ethereum had a UI. Like, think about it, right? Like, Like, so infrastructure always, like in Web3, it proved that if you get the infrastructure right, you can get the user experience eventually right. And now my job, I feel like, is to, we got the infrastructure great, the fundamentals are working, the capabilities are increasing, the community is like, fired up and building. But now we nail the UI and we nail the delivery.
Mm-hmm.
It's unstoppable. Like that's what's holding it up.
I think Akash doesn't get a lot of credit for the things that it has already created. What do you think is something that people a lot of times don't realize Akash has done, or is continuing to do that, people might just be clueless about? Like, what doesn't get enough credit, at Akash?
But I think people don't pay attention to how much we build and how much we ship in terms of like our activity. GitHub actually, like, nobody like really actually looks at like what we're doing, right? Like, so a lot of people are focused on this, for lack of a better word, I won't say fake partnerships, just empty partnerships, empty announcements, right? Like, you know,
Like AVAX using AWS?
so I gave them a hard time before, but I actually talked to a bunch of people, and yeah, AWS using AWS, I feel like is actually a good partnership. It's actually a really decent partnership, right? In the sense, like, okay, AWS users get like, free credits, but the way they glorify the partnership was horrible. They just like the Emin dude, the founder, was like, "Oh, this is not your average grandmother's partnership. Oh, we're way better than your average." The delivery, the tone, the way they put forward, and the pump that came with it was just disgusting. I felt like, right? It's an okay part. It was like, okay, you're getting a bunch of. Here's on the bright side, Amazon's doing a phenomenal job. I think this is really good. And Amazon is actually like, pro Web3, and they're obviously making effort, right? Like, and Google and Microsoft as well, they're actually like making effort. They're standing teams down, Web3 teams in Google's and Amazon's of the world, where they're recognizing the need for it, right? And I talked to a bunch of people at Amazon. They're like, look, the company is centralized, and the company is set up in a way that even though all our teams are very decentralized, we have very decentralized ethos. It's just you can't really do much about it because the company is set up in a centralized fashion. The only way to change that is to decentralize. So a lot of them are actually pro decentralization, right? So I think that you can do a lot better instead of just getting a bunch of free credits in terms of partnership, right? So I like what Solana did in terms of how they announced the partnership. They didn't glorify the Google partnership. They still pumped, a lot, but the way the approach was very subtle. It was not like Google's going to change everything, right? It's very subtle. I like that. I don't know. Yeah. And Polygon is doing a good job. Like, Polygon BD team, I feel like, is like top tier. They're doing a great job. But everyone else is just like very, very empty, right? Like, so Polygon obviously worked a lot. I mean, they've done a very incredible growth from where they were to where they are right now. They came from nothing, right? Like, Solana too, like, they didn't raise gazillions of like trillions of dollars of funding in the beginning. They came from nothing. There's a common pattern you see with like some companies like protocols like Polygon and Solana. They came from like very little and built all the way up. To compare to something like Avalanche, is like professional like super hyped up in the beginning, like oh, it just tells quite a lot,
Yeah, it's a completely different story. But all right, so we got AVAX has AWS, Solana has Google, Cosmos has Akash. Is that a
no?
fair
We're not
comparison?
Akash is not competing with Google and Amazon. I don't think they're not a competition. I think in order for Akash to be successful, Google and Amazon need to be part of Akash. I mean, Akash is a global marketplace. We're not there. We're not. I think we're way past the point that there is heavy concentration happening on Amazon and Google's.
Yeah.
And we're at a point the world has recognized that. The world has shifting away from it. And Akash is helping diversify that, right? Decentralize it. But decentralization is about removing concentration risk. Decentralization is about removing attack vectors that compromise the network. Right. So it's not about like Amazon hosting on Amazon is bad. It's just if all your nodes are hosted on Amazon, that's bad. If 70% of your nodes are hosted on Amazon, that's bad. Like Ethereum, hosted on Amazon. 70%, it's not that bad. If like 1% or 2% are hosted on Amazon, that's still okay because you remove that 1%, your network is resilient.
Right. You're still decentralized, even if you use AWS, because it's not all there.
It's about centralization risk. It's about think about it, right? Like, okay, AWS, you have all your eggs in one basket, they say, right? Like all your eggs in one basket. AWS, somebody writes some bad code, happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because this code is not public, it's all private. So no, that you don't have the rigorous like what do you call accountability. Peer review, exactly. That happens in a public setting. Somebody makes a mistake, boom, they push, something breaks, and you're done. Like you're down,
Yeah.
right? Or I don't know, you'd say something wrong on social media, and some exec in Amazon is like pretty big, right? It's like it's not Jeff Bezos being an evil person, but some exec doesn't like the fact that you said you wore, I don't know, a different color of sunglasses then or something,
Or you didn't like what you said about him. Even worse, right?
Yeah, okay. Or something that you don't really expect, right? And they're like, oh, this guy is like bad. Pull your plug. Right? What do you do? So decentralization is about removing those attack vectors that compromise an operation of a network or a system, right? So if you think about decentralization, like doesn't matter how your node decentralization happens, you still have your governance attacks. You have a lot of different attack vectors you got to look at. Ultimately, for us, it's about development attack, right? Supply chain attack, right? Like, okay, you have decentralized, but who's writing the code? Right. In fact, who's defining who's writing the code, right?
And like, even the step back from the code itself. Yeah.
If you remove different layers, you'll find like it ultimately comes down to this risk of like this one or two people ultimately running the show, and you got to remove that. So like if you think about Ethereum Foundation, deep respect for Ethereum, it's incredible ecosystem, but it still has Vitalik as a centralization risk.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ethereum Foundation is the core foundation that determines like who gets a grant. That's still a risk, right? Like, I mean, the foundation blows up. What are you going to do, right? Like, who's going to write the software? How are they going to coordinate? So I feel very proud of Cosmos because it doesn't have that sort of like strong foundation, the strong like single man, single point of failure when it comes to development. So I really admire Cosmos's decentralized nature. And so that's why you don't have strong BD teams, but trust me, everybody I talk to is like amazed by Cosmos. The fact that we don't have that centralized coordination mechanism makes it even more stronger. You're going to see like you're not going to see rushed announcements like Avalanche. Even Google announcement is great. I mean, it's Google running Solana nodes is cool, but it's not like a game changing announcement.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think you're going to see like fundamentally different announcements with Cosmos. It's going to take longer, but it's going to come, right? I'm saying this because I have firsthand information working with a lot of companies, right? And obviously, I'm not going to say who it is, but I will tell you that the products that are being built based on Cosmos is like nothing you've seen with the past announcements.
That's awesome. I mean, I don't talk about Cosmos enough because I don't think it doesn't get hyped up like other things because there's not like people are not being thrown wads of cash to build on it like other platforms like you were just talking about. So again, they don't get as much credit as they deserve a lot of times because of that, because they're not throwing money at people.
And like, who's throwing money? Like, so we get requests for grant proposals for developing Cosmos, right? So right now, there's a lot of like coordination effort that's happening between protocols, coming together, putting in pool of tokens to grants to develop the system. It's not a single company doing it. It's like a bunch of us, like Junos, Osmosis, Evmos, all these like Atom Hub, all coming together and be like, okay, we gotta develop this stuff, right? It's amazing this how these things work. And it's just organic, it's natural, it's not planned, it's not. And there's so much drama. And Cosmos has something called DPS or drama per second metric, we call it. Why drama? Because people care. If people don't care, there's no drama, right?
Yep.
So
they're not. The weird thing is that like community wise, they're not very toxic in comparison to a lot of others too. Like I would expect them to be awful. Like there's no money being thrown around like other people. It's just like people coming together and trying to grow the ecosystem. But people
There
are
is a level of
basic.
toxicity that it's not as bad as others, but
That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's always going to be. This is Web3. I mean, people are like, "Oh, bear market? Yeah, let's trash everything and everyone." But it's
yeah,
not as bad as other places, which is surprising. They expect it to be worse, but it's not.
yeah, yeah. It's really nasty. Other place, but Cosmos, I feel like the foundations are very very strong, right? Like the founders, the founders of Cosmos, Jaquan and Ethan Buckman, are no longer the central figures.
Hmm.
They are contributing. I mean, Joe is, he goes up and down. Like, so he shows up once in a while, but Ethan is a lot more active than Joe. But they admire the founders because they created something that I don't know if they planned the ecosystem to work this way, but when they created, I really admire the effort they put into to value accrual and value capture. Like they were like, oh, Atom doesn't really capture value, and that's fine. Create value, right? IBC, like inter blockchain, there's no
Yep.
middleman that doesn't to capture value, and that's fine. Like, and that's okay. And that's what creates a strong foundation. Now, Atom now user success can create value and through shared security and whatnot. But if it captured value early, like Polkadot does, you would end up like Polkadot,
Yeah.
right? So it's just, and it's very, very important. And why you want value accrual if you have long-term usage thinking? Because you want to get quick rich. Like Polkadot, like the only reason I can think of, like Polkadot, it's like Gavin's an incredible guy, but what the hell was the thinking of creating that like heavy value capture mechanism so early into the token? Because that becomes like the Pumponomics Foundation, right? Like, okay,
100%. I mean, that's how
oh,
they grow so fast.
and the value. So okay, now what you do? You can't deliver, right? So hype is hype, and like value like capture early days. I believe is only going to attract wrong people, and it's going to make wrong people rich. And when that happens, you're going to have a create a community that's hyper toxic, right? Because those people that got rich are going to have other people come in because it has to flow down. It's a Ponzi, right? It has to like
100%.
the other people have to buy their shit. The other people, the normal people that have nothing to do with the token, are in terms of value like creation, right? They're not participating, end up like buying the tokens, and then they lose, right? Versus something like Atom, where builders need the tokens to build shit, and are actually buying tokens because they want to build stuff, and are
Yeah.
actually getting paid in tokens because they build something, are the ones that are going to get rich early, right?
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you
Right.
build a network where people are literally buying to dump, that's exactly what you get. I mean, you see the charts over and over and over again. It's like, hey, we started something, we're going to pump it up. And then it just comes straight down, crashing like crazy because there's no use case for it. It's just
Yeah.
there's no real tangible value. There's no real network for you to build on.
Yeah.
It
So
totally
yeah.
makes sense.
So ignore the hate, ignore the hype, keep building. I mean, bear markets are amazing because, like, hey, don't confuse whatever the recent pump for bull market. You still have bear market, right? Very much. I know all these people like token bumps like 10%. You're like, holy shit, you're gonna get both now, right? Like, we're still very active in the bear market. Use this opportunity of silence to focus on what's important. Take the L's and like just focus on like building, right? Like, and Cosmos is true to its ethos. Um, I mean, bull market, I believe, will come in 2025. Again, like this, my own prediction. I think it takes a year of building, solid building, before we can get the narratives in 2024. So focus on narrative builders, right? Right now, it's like building to build a narrative, right? I mean,
Yeah.
crypto always works in narratives. We don't know what the narrative is going to be. I mean, that's the best part of it. But the ones that are building and iterating and actively experimenting are the ones that I think are going to be in a best position to capture the new narrative.
Yeah, because they'll be ready. Instead of people focusing on buying things just to sell them, they're focusing on something that's tangible, that's real, that will actually give real value to new users coming in Web3.
And the new narrative is going to be, I mean, looks like it's going to be real yield, they call it, right? The real yield, because people are tired of this inflationary economics. you know, people are asking, like, it causes a lot of damage, right? Like, where's the yield coming from? You look at IST, right? Like, where's the yield
Yeah.
coming from? You're asking them questions. If it's just all like inflationary Ponzi-nomics, then people are not attracted to that. People are seeing through that very, very, very. People got burned. People lost money. So now the real yield means ultimately it's just bricks and mortar. Like ultimately, it's like someone paying someone, and this
Yeah.
protocol providing the value is taking like a fee out of it. Uniswap is a real yield because Uniswap is like really on-chain swaps that are paying exchange fees, and exchange fees going to LPs, right?
Yep.
It's no like incentives. There's no additional incentives on top. It's not you don't get like yield by giving liquidity
Yeah.
from inflation tokens, right?
You get as much as people are willing to, use it or, trade.
Exactly, real deal, right? So like look at so even people that ship, be very careful because you always want to, like, it's okay to bootstrap a network with like the inflationary tokens, but once the inflationary tokens goes away, you gotta ask how much real yield is, and you gotta like
Yeah.
also do the analysis about like, people don't do this, but net yield analysis in the sense like how much incentives are there for usage of a network
Hmm.
minus daily emissions, right? Daily emissions. How much is being emitted in terms of like tokens to subsidize the network, uh, minus how much revenue the network is going, or like how much the network minus how much yield is you're paying, right? DeFi, take anything, and you'll get an
Well,
answer. If that answer
every time I try to say those numbers, people come crashing in going, "Why are you fudding this thing? Why
I'm fine.
being so bearish about it?" It's like, I'm just being real. Like, I'm not trying to make anything up. These are the numbers. They're terrible. You're not getting real value out of this. You're getting the money that some VC put in, and it's going to run out pretty soon.
Yeah. So it's like, exactly. So like, so how much you're paying to get how much revenue? What cost of revenue, right?
Yeah.
The cost of revenue. If you, I mean, you're a marketer, you understand CAC, right? Like, like so you apply the CAC metric, cost to acquire a customer and
Yep.
cost to keep a customer. So cost of revenue minus actual revenue, and you get your answer. If you don't see that trend, I mean, negative is okay when you're early and it's
At start.
happening,
Yeah.
but the trend has to be shifting towards positivity, right? And that's not happening. You're not going to, that projects are going to make. And TVL is one of the worst possible fucking like ways to measure a success of a platform. TVL is like, yeah, it's so bad. It's not. It doesn't have it doesn't have a moat. TVL disappears the moment someone else is giving like a better yield, right?
Yep.
Um, Only thing that matters is like the revenue, the profit, how much the network is making, um, and even liquidity. I'll be wary because liquidity is also a function of Ponzi-nomics. Because like, okay, you give high yield, of course you're gonna get liquidity, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not rocket science. Um, like I admire the liquidity on Uniswap. Like it's incredible without incentives, right? Who is
Yeah.
like that's a kind of like, you know eh, yeah, when you remove your daily emissions, you'll get a lot of answers. So that's all I want to end with. I don't want to get into like individual protocols like whatnot.
So let me ask you a personal Greg question. You're doing it the right way. I really do think that you're doing it the right way. You're not trying to implement all these crazy Ponzi-nomics, these schemes to get the token to pump and then, get yourself locked in with a limited timeline to deliver. Otherwise it will, crash and burn just like everybody else. Are you tired? Because it sounds exhausting.
No, it's actually refreshing, right? Like it's exhausting when the outcomes do not meet your expectations.
Okay.
Okay. If I go do pumponomics, it's easy. I can do pumponomics. You can turn on.
You put on your hat, right? And you just go to town doing AMAs?
No, pumponomics is like, well, put the incentives on Akash Network. Oh, you get like you list your supply, you get a fuck ton of tokens.
Yep.
Anybody can list a supply, get a lot of tokens, right? If you use Akash, you get paid. Like Filecoin, right? You can actually get paid for hosting a Filecoin. I don't know if you know that.
So, will there be a time where you think Akash will need to have some kind of marketing push?
Oh, absolutely. postcard
Okay.
market fit.
How far away are we from that then?
We're very close. Okay, so before we get there, if I go and like before to answer your previous question, like is it is it tiring? If I go and be like, hey, I'm going to introduce pumponomics, the token should pump, it's not pumping, then I get tired. If you focus on the wrong things, you get tired because the outcome is never something you can control.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, most outcome is not, so you want to optimize for things where your outcome, where the influence of the outcome where you can influence much better, right? And you get burnt out. Tiring, you get tired, you can, take some rest and like get back at it and run, right? But getting burnt out is what you want to watch out for, because once you get burnt out, it's very hard to reverse that. And burnout happens if you have series of unexpected outcomes. Anything you do is just not turning out, right? You're trying 2 hours, it's not turning out. But if you reduce the expectations and be very open, be like, hey, this is an experiment, this is expectation. The expectation is we're going to get results. We hope the results is going to match like what we end, but we're going to be okay if the results don't meet our expectations, because we're going to fine tune the process. We're going to redo reiteration, right? There's always hope. We can do more things to improve the results, right? Taking a scientific, like iterative based approach, you're marketing, right? You do this all the time. You don't get intentional outcome all the time, but what you know is you have the capability to iterate and change and see better results. So you don't get burnt out. You have that sort of like minimal expectations and loving the process. So I've been doing this for 7 years, building Akash, and and we always walked out. I mean, there were times we made a lot of mistakes, and of course, like any company in 7 years. My co-founder is still my co-founder. Like, we started the company together, so that tells you a lot about our relationship, right? Like we had our fair share of differences, but we always found a way to settle those differences, and by focusing on what's important, right? So, is it tiring? It's tiring, but it's not exhausting in the sense that I'm going to give up everything. And second question: when is Akash going to turn up the marketing engine? Is when our K is greater than 1. K is the viral coefficient, right? So what that means is we're bringing in more users than we're losing. And in order for us to bring in more users than we're losing, we got to nail the user journey.
Yeah.
User journey is something right now, I can't put a Twitter ad and expect that Twitter ad to work.
Sure.
It doesn't. So as a marketer, you know very well, if you can't measure the funnel, you can't market.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's like throwing money away. If you have no idea if it's working, not working, you got to have that pathway set.
Yeah, you're throwing the money away, you'll get results. If you throw enough money, right? Put a billboard, you probably get results. In the billboards, I don't know if they have ways to measure, but I am more, I take an engineering approach and more like scientific in terms of like, hey, what is a CAC? Where is the money going? How is it actually translating? Now we have a measurable. Now we have a budget in terms of a token.
Yeah. Like
incentives, how much budget we can allocate to get a user. And now you can design a system where, okay, we're spending more money. If you're spending more money than we're making off a user, what does that LTV for a user look like? And then eventually, cost threshold. What does our retention cohorts look like? Yep. What's our 30-day? What is our day? And where are we losing the user? Where are we getting the user, right? Unless we're able to do that level of demand optimization and user journey optimization, we're not going to turn on marketing.
You can't set KPIs without that.
You can't set KPI. You can't set anything. You can't do anything. Like people in crypto of marketing is like, I'm like, what exactly are we talking about when we're marketing, right? Like, are we talking about like Ponzonomics and expect this thing to blow up and wait for a bull market to come and make some money? Are we talking about actually like measuring user growth? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what is the retention, right? Like, what is your people don't even answer like what's your users, like how much usage you have. Answer the question, forget retention, right?
Yeah, no.
I'll tell you what,
a lot of that stuff, it's not being tracked. You're dead on. There's a lot of companies like throwing a lot of money away, and none of that stuff is being tracked. And I keep thinking of FTX whenever you say that. It's like, let's go get a stadium. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And it's like they're literally just throwing money left and right.
And look at the books now, right? You're just throwing money. They're losing money, and they were just committing fraud in order to throw more money. It was like, holy shit. Like, I'm like, okay, so you threw a lot of money. You have no idea whether it worked because you don't even have probably like a framework to measure like anything from the investment, right?
Yeah.
And you're throwing more money at it, hoping it's hopium, right? And that's how the entire industry is like structured.
Yeah. And
Leverage. Taking leverage is just like eventually it's going to blow the fuck up, right? Like,
oh, it always does. But that's the thing. Like that's, I'm excited that FTX blew up now, not later, because the impact is way lesser than what it could have been. Like I'm like I feel bad for all the people that lost money. I lost money as a like a sideways thing because of it. But like this is good to happen now, not later, because a lot more people would have gotten hurt. So I'd rather get stuff cleaned up now, not later. Make sure that we're building, in the right pathway, as opposed to, funny money that you can just print your own token and pretend that there's value.
yeah. So yeah, so I'm not so too worried about like this amazing protocols doing amazing quote unquote marketing. I don't think that's amazing marketing, to be honest with you. I think the real marketing comes when you have real users,
Yeah.
and real marketing comes in like gaining more users. And in order for that to happen, you got to recognize your friction points. You got to solve those friction points. You got to measure those solutions. You got to measure the user journey every step of the way, and you got to optimize. And that's the only way to do it. So the other people
No.
that do amazing things, I'm not Steve Jobs. I can go up on the stage and be like, "Hey, this is iPhone. Everything's going to change the world." And people, I bet you.
It's practice. Anybody can do that, Greg. You can totally nail it. It's all practice. I mean, you put your game face on. It's like, what was it? Bill Gates going up there and showing off Windows 95. And if he got one click wrong, the whole thing would have ended up in the blue screen because they literally rehearsed every click because it wasn't ready to be shown off. Like, it's all a marketing game when you see those things happening on stage. It's not always about what's being built. It's about, can I make myself and the company look good? And people miss that all the time.
But they at least have good products that work.
Sure. I mean, that's the bare minimum requirement. And then like we're almost ready. We're not ready yet. I got to put on the show. Let me go put on the show so that we can. That's what they did. I mean, Steve Jobs going up there showing off the iPhone. The iTunes feature that didn't really shuffle the way he wanted it to. That was a big thing that they had to work through while they, promised that it already worked. It's, Bill Gates showing off Windows 95. Well, it wasn't ready. They had to fix it before they deliver to the customers. So that is that time frame that they have right there is the exact time frame that these companies are giving themselves when they pump up their token and claim that it's going to cure world hunger. And then all of a sudden it's like, we got to deliver this. Otherwise we're going to tank. And 9 times out of 9, you've been tanking.
Yeah. So our approach is more long-term, right? So we did have our Steve Jobs moment with Super Mini. We did see the success. Hello?
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Yeah, I think that might have been my internet that kicked off for a second, but it's still recording on both ends, so we're still good.
And we did have our Super Mini moment with our Steve Jobs moment with Super Mini, and we realized that but we were honest enough to recognize that this effort is going to be quite a lot to actually deliver the product, and we were early to recognize that we delivered. Now I am like, well, we're going to ship first and really nail our user experience and do in a different way where we actually go to users and actually have users using them. 25% of Cosmos ecosystem uses Akash, right now. And we have node operators that come to that are using Akash. They're fine. On one hand, find amazingly well. On the other hand, find extremely difficult to use because we have certain features that they're missing, but they're using. That's the best part. They're using and giving us feedback. And we are working on fixing those problems. And we're recognizing them. We are acknowledging them in a fully public setting. And there's a whole auditable, traceable progress for that particular complaint that goes all the way to code. That's also very, very important. Like is feedback actually being worked on, right? So that's what I think I'm very proud of.
Did you know you were going to be here when you were let's say in high school? Did you have any idea?
High school, I grew up on a farm in India. I learned how to code without computers.
Without computers?
Without a computer. I mean, since I didn't own one, I had books and I would go, what do you call that? Go to with computer centers or libraries to get the books. And I would write the program in the night, and I'd take the program in the morning to a computer lab, and I would get 80% right. I still have it like 20%, but you just need to like, error correct, right? Like, so I was using computers as my validation function eventually,
Wow.
but I learned how to code more fundamentally. I think that made me a better programmer
100%.
uh, because I could learn the fundamentals of it. And same thing with photography. Like, I actually shoot on film. Even now, I shoot film analog because there are no electronics in that camera.
Yeah.
Because that teaches me fundamentals of light and how light interacts with film and whatnot, and optics, right? So I love optics. I love like analog and fun, like first principles aspect of anything, as a matter of fact, right? So you apply first principles to every product, right? You apply first principles to like DeFi or like even like crypto. They all say you need customers to be successful and users. Ultimately, whatever Ponzinomics you do or whatever growth techniques you do, ultimately the only thing that'll matter is users, and users using the product, and you deliver the value, right? So anyway,
No, I mean that's a big deal. Like, I know you're just saying in passing, but like you're literally able to visualize what the software, what the program, what your code needs to do before actually writing a single line down. Like that's a system architect. That's somebody that has the foresight to say, we're here now, but this is where we're going and this is how we're going to get there. And is
I'm
able
very
to,
analog here, as you can see. I get the phone. I use books and paper to write stuff, right? Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
huge. It's huge. I mean, people, and Greg, like, I came to the States when I was 13 years old. The first computer I've ever, had here, I found in the dumpster and it wasn't fully working. When I picked it up, I had to like figure out how to make it work. Like that's my story, of how I got into this whole thing.
It's awesome.
It made me better because it took me to literally the basics. Like, all right, I have something that could be worth something that I could enjoy, but I got to figure it out first. Like, that's a big deal. Like, when people say builders are going to build, it's true, because when you get that bug of like, I want to make something, I want to see the product of my labor come to fruition.
Yeah.
Like, full faith in what you're building because of who you are.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the way I'm looking at the Akash network. It's not like, oh yeah, this thing, UI is not good. It still needs to improve here and there, but they are doing this and that. No. Like, I know that Greg figured out how to code before he had a computer. I know that guy will figure it out and will make it work. So my trust can be easily put on you over the network itself, if that makes any sense at all.
Thank you. I mean, so for us, it's yeah, like, so my background, like after India, I learned how to code, got a computer, came to the States in my 20s, actually, even when I was 21. And my first computer I actually bought in college. So that's when I got really good, like making websites and whatnot. But I've been programming since 95.
That's awesome. I mean, and that's like everybody got everyone that I know that is successful, that is building something awesome, has these incredible stories that most people don't even know are there. They just think, oh yeah, they're great, they're doing something amazing right now. But it's like, you know where they came from? Do you know that could have been you? Like, it's not too late for you to build something incredible if you just make that decision to do it yourself and like forget about your circumstances and just push forward. Circumstances are going to be great or going to be terrible. They're going to vary because that's life. But what
Yeah.
you do with them, it's all up to you. It's all up to you.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, I think also, like, for a lot of us founders that have stories like yours and mine, have a different view of the world in the products that we build. Ultimately, for somehow, I don't know, subliminally, just incorporate that sort of like ethos. Like, when I founded Angel Hack in 2011, Angel Hack is the largest hackathon in the world. The ethos was like, well, in India, the way I learned how to program, sure, I had like books and whatnot, and I had computers, but it was a lot of mentorship, right? A lot of friends that are seniors, older than me. I would go ask them, this 12-year-old asking questions, right? Like, they'd be annoyed, they'd be friends, and they would help. But I had a lot of interaction and learned a lot through collaboration. And in the US, I saw a very introverted sort of like culture than in India, or like in third world, people are very extroverted. People are
Yeah.
very like collaborative, right?
Yeah.
The
They're
whole
super
world,
welcoming.
super welcoming. So the hackathon idea was like use that sort of like collaborative like culture, bring people together, create a safe space, give them food, give them entertainment, and let them work on whatever they want to work on a weekend. So you have all the kinds of people, weirdos, like all kinds of people come together and find their people, right? So that resulted in incredible stuff coming out. I mean, hackathons are you may not end up building products that are going to be super successful at there, but you find people that you can build with in the future. So the outcome, a lot of us, I think, like a lot of the Web 2 was built on hackathon foundation. People come to hackathons and like even Travis Klamick, who did like Uber, I think met these four founders at hackathon, something like that, right? Like, so
Yeah.
a lot of incredible stories you hear that come out of hackathons. And so my influence of me growing up in India, the way I grew up, influenced Angel Hack, right? And that influenced so many other products. So
No, that's incredible. That's so awesome. I know you said that, marketing push is still coming, but the people that want to get involved with Akash right now, what can they do? What kind of users, could get involved, and how do they get started?
So we are looking for contributors to our to community. So we are a community-based project, right? So if you're a developer, if you're a writer, if you are a marketer, if you are a business person, come talk to me. Greg Osuri is my Twitter handle. Greg Osuri is also my Telegram handle. Um, or go to akash.network/community. So you'll find a lot of content how you can contribute based on your background, on what you can contribute, what groups you can be part of, right? So we're looking all kinds of levels in terms of engineers. Like you can be a web engineer, you can be a backend engineer, it doesn't really matter. We also have an incentive system that'll incentivize your contribution. So if you want to build something, we will pay you money, good money, if you want to build something. So we, in the sense, our community, right? It's a very like open and welcoming community. So yeah, if like and the best part of being Akash is being part of something big, right? Like something really big. And trust me, with these announcements that are going to come out in the next few months, it's going to make it obvious as to where our head is and who's using Akash, like, and who's going to give us a distribution. But you want to do that before these announcements come, because I think it's going to be a different place when after these announcements are going to come. And also like from like crypto in general, I think projects not I'm biased to open source, but I think it's a whole like disgustingly active discussion about whether crypto should be open source or not. I'm like, what? Like, is that this is 2023? FTX, a closed company, run the entire industry. Celsius, BlockFi, Genesis, 3AC, or impact directly, but impacted indirectly. All of them are closed source centralized entities that caused the situation we're in, that caused you and I to be in misery. You lose our money, right? We lost a lot of money, all of us did. And you're still asked the question whether crypto should be open and decentralized. There is no decentralization without open source. That is the foundation. The foundation is the first step. I mean, open sourcing is the first step. If you can't verify someone else's source code, you can't be decentralized. Like how do you know? Like anyway, so this is just like a lot of like this.
How do you know things are not being funneled here and there? How do you know that it's actually secure? How do you know that you can trust people, right?
Yeah, exactly. How do you know like you can trust people, especially with your money? Like how do you know there's no multi-sig that's controlling all your funds? That can just like rug you in any second. The source code is not open, right? Like you just assume because you get fancy yields and it's just disgusting. Anyway, so you want to pick open source projects that you want to support. Do not support any non-open source project. That's just not what's going to get us out of this mess we're in, right? The mess was created by closed source, closed companies, right? There was literally a backdoor in FTX source code that channeled all the customer funds to Alameda. That happened because of closed source software.
Yep.
So support open source projects. And Akash, again, like it's not because we're open source, I'm not beating my own drum, but I think it's what we've done is fundamentally long term and important, and we want this culture to spread. We want an open source culture to be dominant. In fact, like I think Solana Labs, everybody should like dissolve the labs or like minimize the labs as much as possible and build in the open, right? So on
Talk
Ethereum
about
to
that
adopt
means
open source.
building, right? Like you're the best example of that. Like talk about building community. You make it open source. Everybody jumps on and starts contributing with one another, and all of a sudden your overhead goes down.
Yeah, that's a great advantage too. There are other problems you get, but the burn comes down, which is a good advantage.
You just
Yeah,
need to have a voting system where you can kick people off the island.
right.
Greg,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
just
you also got to learn how to be nice and stuff.
no, for sure. Otherwise, it's like you were saying, like it can be toxic if it's not the right environment and not the right people. So I'm excited to hear what's going on over there, and I'm definitely going to stay on top of it because I want to get in now, not after those announcements in the next few months, like you said.
Yeah, yeah. Contribution. I'm not asking you to buy the token. You can buy the token, but I'm not selling token. Contribution is what we're looking for. People that want to contribute. You know.
I mean, when I need tokens to contribute.
Yeah, holding tokens, you can contribute. You can vote. You know, participate in governance. You can run a
Yep.
Vladimir. You can run a node. Yeah.
Oh, well, but thank you, honestly. Like, thank you for being so candid about everything, even, where you started to where you think people are not getting it right. I mean, it means a lot. It helps people understand that this, Web3 world is still building and there is a lot more to come.
Absolutely. Truly enjoy the conversation.
All right, buddy. You have a great one. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully that gave you a little bit of insight into what's going on in Greg's head. It was just a great time to just sit and chat and talk about things that matter. Also, he did show me all his awesome cameras. Didn't get that one on video, but that's okay. Here's the deal. More interviews to come, more awesome people building incredible things in this Web3 space. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you subscribe. They're probably going to put a card here for the subscription and then two over here for things to check out, like a playlist of more videos from the channel, as well as some recommendation that YouTube thinks you might like to watch.
Pick needs to account for my lifestyle, so I'm not going to go out of the way to. Sometimes I go out of the way to take pictures, but most of the time I'm just like taking pictures that's around me, right? Like my work that I spend most of the time at. So I started taking my camera to my meetings, and I like taking pictures of people in their essence when they're doing what they love, or they're talking about what they love
In
doing.
action.
Greg, right? So I'm like all candid shots, and those shots became really good to a point. People were just coming to meetings with me to take the pictures.
Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds a little counterproductive.
Yes, so I stopped like doing that, and I'm like big people would like take meetings with me, like I hear you take pictures, and like because people started posting their black and white film photos, and so I started taking pictures, and I started putting up for sale because people were like, "I'd buy your picture." People started buying my pictures. Now I'm a professional, but I don't take pictures on jobs. I don't take pictures. I don't go to events and like I work for like money to take pictures. I just take whatever I want.
Yeah.
And whether people pay for it or don't is up to them. But I don't actively go like take engagement. So I'm still considered an artist, right? I'm not like a professional photographer. The difference between a photographer, a professional, and an artist is a professional does that for a living. I don't do that for a living, I guess.
But you're a professional builder. That you do that for a living? Can you say that?
I'm a professional builder. So actually, funny enough, I thought about. I'm definitely a professional builder. I'm a professional engineer. I don't know because like I was a professional when I was working for someone for money to make product to build software. I build now for Akash, right? So I don't do it for money. I don't get paid to build. I just build. Akash, on the other hand, gives incredible value. So I'm a professional. I don't get paid for building. I'm not. I'm a businessman at this point, right? Like I'm not even a